The project set out to produce biofuel from seaweed, and to do that you need to produce it at a cost point, and that cost point was about $80 per dry metric ton, so it's really low and really cheap. So in order to do that, we've had to figure out how we could optimize and increase our efficiency and different aspects of the farming industry. So the hatchery, out on the farm, harvesting, and this project doesn't involve the processing side, but that also is sort of something that we've looked into as well.
With my collaborators, we conceived of the project to demonstrate how efficiently and how effectively we can grow kelp here in Alaska.
After a little bit of back and forth with the Department of Energy, it ended up that Alaska needed to be brought in to this. So University of Alaska Fairbanks became the lead of this project. And it's in cooperation now with Woods Hole and University of Connecticut and private engineer and Alaska Fisheries Development Foundation and Green Wave and other organizations.
For the RPU project, I was brought in to facilitate, to do the gear work, deploy the gear, to harvest the gear, giving feedback to the engineers that were involved with the project and trying to make stuff better.
My site, Pop-Off Island site, hosts the project, so my lease is where I would say 90% of the things we were trying were done.
We've had some failures to overcome, and so like any other type of agricultural experiment, basically, we're learning as we go.
With kelp farming, you have one chance to try something each year. So you try it and you don't really know if it worked or not until harvest. And then the next year you sort of iterate. And the time between iterations is pretty long. We can't try a bunch of different things at once and then hopefully, weed it out from there. It's just try it this year. Oh, it didn't work. Try this slightly different thing. Oh, that worked. And keep making incremental improvements like that. So on this project, we use this Cliff Gotti designed catenary system. So it's almost, if you can imagine, sort of a bridge. It's got that nice little arch, and because it has that arch, all the lines are under the same amount of tension.
I think the overall idea of the catenary style farm is great because it can be changed pretty easily.
If you had a normal sort of square system and just try to put lines between that, they'd all have different tension levels, but that arch allows for that even tension. And so this allows us to have lines that are very closely spaced. And so on normal farms, they have individual long lines. And because those move sort of freely and aren't under as much tension, you have to space them out further. So on most farms, maybe they're 25 feet is the closest. Maybe they're usually 50 feet. But here we can have lines that are 2.5 feet apart. So we're really optimizing the growing area. And we can produce a lot more seaweed in a smaller area, which is, it has benefits in terms of the aesthetics, in terms of paying for lease areas. You need a smaller lease area, but you can grow more kelp.
We developed this thing called the Harvest Buddy, and it was basically a really small barge, 16 feet long by 10 feet wide. What I like the most is we were able to really shrink down the footprint needed for the machinery that you needed to harvest. And so it allows a smaller, cheaper harvest vessel to kind of continuously harvest. And that was what RPE was really interested in.
I think what gives me hope is the energy and the enthusiasm of the participants, the farmers, all the associated industries that supply the farmers, that buy product, the buzz in the marketplace, the fact that half the farmers I know are women. This is kind of rare in maritime industry for women to take a more assertive role and participatory role, not just in the processing and downstream stuff, but also in the farming. It gives me hope that this is a well-balanced and a well-managed and a truly participatory process in the public sphere as well as in our social economic development.
The hope I have, especially in lieu of some of the fisheries disasters we've incurred in Alaska recently and the closure of some fisheries, notably our crab fishing, I hope that it gives fishermen an alternative, something else to do on the water, something that's more stable from year to year, and something that we can control and that has possibly positive ecological impacts. So that's what I hope. I really hope that it really does add to Alaska's economy in a beneficial way.
And the kelp out here is just huge. There are very few spots on the East Coast where we get kelp that's this productive like it is in Kodiak, Alaska.
I think it's important to recognize that all forms of food production have unintended consequences. It's not unique to aquaculture. It's particularly rife with monocultures. So this is something that we should learn from agriculture, not make the same mistakes.
We don't know the best way to do everything yet, and so we're constantly learning. There's always room for improvement. Don't sort of rest on your laurels and just say, oh yeah, that's good enough. There are always better ways. And having different people from different backgrounds look at these problems and come up with different solutions, and trying this version versus that version has really been beneficial for us. It has been a team effort to build this sort of optimal farm.